Hello, magnificent family. How are you this very, very fine evening? It's been a bloody nice day in Brisbane, and you can see I'm moving my shoulders. My back, not so flash, and the ribs still pretty sore. But at the end of the day, improvement and great improvement, which I wholeheartedly put down to comfrey oil and an iTerra wand, because that's all I've done. Apart from, the days where I could rest where I could for as long as I could, but rest as much as I could. I didn't get much sleep, but rest. But I got to tell you, unbelievable. I don't think I could have recovered to the level that I have without the comfrey oil and the iTerra wand. Just my personal experience. Don't take my advice as health advice or anything like that. I can just tell you my experience, and it really is with an I don't know if you call this a major injury, but it is my first experience with an injury of significance, let's call it that, to me. And I know how I heal. I generally heal pretty fast. But for this kind of injury, some years ago, I had my sternum split in a not dissimilar fashion to what happened here. And I know how long that took me to recover without the aid of comfrey oil. This isn't dissimilar to what happened in many ways, and position's a little bit different and whatnot, but comfrey oil, I'm practically bathed in it. I have very little of the oil left, unfortunately, but I also have very little of the pain left at this stage, and I'm seeing a specialist for those of you that are interested. Not a chiropractor. There is a kinesiology area to this and something else, but I'm seeing a specialist, I hope, on Monday afternoon at some stage, because my back is still out in a number of places and my neck. However, at this point in time, the headache seems to be disappearing, and life, the universe goes well. Who was first in the room tonight? Dave O, how are you, brother? The bat is up and blinking. We like to see that. Let me see who else. Chris, I like the way you brought this one out, brother. Good evening, incendiary deliverers of truth bombs. I think that in and of itself is truly spectacular. Yes, I would wholeheartedly agree with that, Kathy. And yes, Trump is on Tucker. 75 million viewers in 45 minutes. I don't know how long ago you posted that. That might mean it's starting now or at 7:30. All right, I'll try and make this quick one, because that's a show we probably all want to be watching, don't you reckon? Who else has got questions and things here? Springtree, how are you? Do you think Prigozhin's death is faked? Absolutely, yes. If you follow me on Facebook, there is a bloke that I'm mates with called Andy Grace. If you followed radio for any years, you'll know who he is. And we're old mates and have been friends for 30 plus years. Andy is an exceptionally good man at delivering insightful opinion pieces on his Facebook page regarding finance, particularly high finance, big finance. Whether or not he knows much about it, but he's a very intelligent guy, probably one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. And today he was, saying how unsurprising it was that Prigozhin has been shot down, the way he has, and was mentioning missiles and all that, and showed a picture. And I saw there was a video attached to the file, I think somewhere I found, where it shows a plane coming down. And I had to reply to that, because it was pretty evident that the plane that was used in the picture either wasn't Prigozhin's aircraft. It was just here's a plane crash, let's show that. Because the aircraft that was coming down, if it had been shot down by a missile, wouldn't have been coming down in the fashion that was pictured. There's, doing battle damage assessment and studying aircraft crashes and that sort of stuff as a hobby, as I have done. That leads me to believe the picture, at any rate, the aircraft in the picture that was shown was exploded from the inside out, and it fell out of the sky like a stone. That means if this was a pretty nice little private jet, it would have been flying at 30,000+ feet. So its forward momentum would have almost ceased in the first 10,000 feet of its fall, because it's lost its propulsion. and therefore it turns into a stone and falls straight down. And that's pretty much the evidence of what you've seen there. And that would indicate an aircraft having an explosion go off somewhere towards the center or the rear of the aircraft, buggering up the tail. So it didn't fit with his outline on that. The rest of the story is that, of course, he's been seen recently with some rogue African guy who supposedly is friends of Russia. That would be the third warning, if you like, after what's gone down with the march on Moscow and, a couple of other threats that have supposedly been put out by Prigozhin to Putin. Let's get a couple of things straight. Prigozhin was Vladimir Putin's personal chef for years, like years. Now, the fact that he may or may not have had some kind of dangerous or exceptionally difficult military past or whatever, but I don't know if you've ever seen the, what was it called? There was a Steven Seagal movie, Under Siege, where there was this very, very highly trained special forces officer who wanted to live out his career basically without having to go off to war and kill people in special and unique ways. And an admiral who, respected his service, gave him the position of the admiral's chef, the admiral's personal chef, kept him close. Great to have a bodyguard like that. And anyway, go and see the movie. Not a bad movie at the end of the day. What if Prigozhin's like that? They are great mates. I have no fear. And if you, as Andy clearly does, believes that the march on Moscow was actually real and not one of the greatest double crosses, if not the greatest double cross in global history, because they were essentially bought by NATO, the US, and Ukraine. They were paid $6.9 billion with a B. $6.9 billion in cash, US dollars, to march on Moscow and throw Putin out, overtake Moscow. Now, they marched. They had to look like they were marching, and they probably would have marched right up to the doors of the Kremlin, but they wouldn't have kicked the doors of the Kremlin in until they had the cash in their hand, because nobody would be stupid enough to do that. So it turns out that Prigozhin and his team were paid about 200 kilometers out of Moscow. And lo and behold, after the payment had gone down and everybody had shook hands and said, "Oh, all right, well, let's go to war," and NATO, the US, and Ukraine got back in their helicopters and flew back over to their side of the border, and Prigozhin and his crew all climbed in their armored personnel carriers and their tanks and their associated other transportation and promptly turned around and started driving away from Moscow with $6.9 billion in cash. Now, Putin isn't going to let him get away with $6.9 billion in cash and double-cross him in the greatest double-cross in history. So clearly they had made a deal. That money has been split, all right? The money wouldn't have stayed in Prigozhin's hands. It would have gone to Putin and to the Central Soviet, if you like, and will be put to very good use, I am sure. Prigozhin's half. Well, all right, let's think about this for a minute. From Vladimir Putin's point of view, if you had in the back of your mind this bloke was going to double-cross you, or that there was some doubt in your mind that he was, in fact, going to try and overthrow your government and no doubt assassinate you, would you, in the course of pulling off the greatest double-cross in history with him, let him take his half of the money before you killed him? I wouldn't. Because why would you let him walk away with $3.45 billion US dollars that would arm him, rearm him, enable him to buy newer, better weapons and weapon systems, enable him to recruit higher paid mercenaries with greater training who will be able to train his already pretty well trained, but it's not so much that they're well trained. They are bloody Russians, so they're brought up on potatoes and vodka, and we have to understand that the Wagner organization is staffed by people out of prison. They were given the ultimatum that you see in the movies. You're going to die in this prison, or you're going to come and work for us and do what you're told. We'll give you a gun. You get to kill people, but only the people we tell you can kill. And we'll give you some money for it. We'll make sure you're okay. We can't let you back out in public, unless you promise not to kill anybody we don't tell you to kill. And that's how the Wagner Group is built. Mercenaries work that way. So some of them will work for Wagner, but some of them won't. Some will say, oh, no, it's not enough money. $120,000 a month is not enough money. Yep, that's what some of them get paid. Some of them get paid more, a lot more. And that's what Prigozhin had the ability to purchase if he was allowed to walk away with $3.45 billion, as Putin let him do. Otherwise, you've got to think that, he would have turned around right again and walked straight back and started shooting things at Moscow. 100%. Don't think for a moment Moscow would have been too worried. They could have annihilated the Wagner Group and could at any given stage. So why would Putin present the guy he's going to kill with the ability to restock, refurbish, rearm, restock his own private army, and then motivate that army by killing off the benefactor who gave him all that cash? Because you know damn well who's going to replace him in that organization. They'll be training to come to Moscow and avenge the death of Prigozhin. So it makes no logical sense. Vladimir Putin is not a stupid man. He is not going to leave his personal chef with $3.45 billion with a plan in mind to kill him a couple of weeks, months down the track. It's just not going to happen. Maybe some people think it will happen. Let me go back to your comments and see what you're saying. J1, I like what you said. You don't think it matters if he's dead or alive? Well, of course it doesn't matter. Well, it sort of does matter, because it'll stop NATO from looking for him if they actually believe it too. You've got to think that there will be a certain amount of animosity from NATO, the US, UK, and Ukraine after being double-crossed in such a fashion. And it took $6.9 billion their paper money there, but it's the only thing they got to trade. It's taken all that straight out of circulation. Of course, what would they have done with it? If they were half smart, they would have gone and bought gold with it, or silver. They would have traded it out of the fiat, out of the US bullshit currency, and placed it solidly into precious metals that would back bricks. See where that's going? Darren Bergwerf is in the house this fine evening. I hope that Darren may or may not be able, I hope he does, join us tomorrow night. Won't matter, because I'm going to catch up with him on Saturday. At least that's the plan, if I can get a flight into Sydney. I'm struggling at the moment with timings to get to where I need to be on Saturday, arrive and get there and be able to get out again. It looks like I've got to try and afford a night in Sydney somewhere and fly down Friday. So at this stage, I think there is a cheap flight available very early Friday morning. So I'll get to go and catch up with some people in Sydney Friday. Oh, that's tomorrow, isn't it? Shit. So no, look, if I'm coming down, it'll be later, because I haven't got it yet. At any rate, the plan is for me to be there Saturday. So look forward to seeing you then, Darren. And I've been having a chat with Luke tonight. Luke Hart, who is representing my place, Gold Coast, was, I thought, in chain to come on tomorrow night for a bit of a chat, so that we can have a chat about the Unity Hub. But he is working so bloody hard on the Unity Hub, and it's not quite ready yet for public release. So we'll hold off until such time as that it is ready for public consumption. But we're very excited about what's going on there, and he's very excited about my place. So I've told him quite a few of the details about it. And I'm sure there'll be a good Gold Coast crew representing when we do the launch of my place, if you like. We'll call it Brisbane colloquially. but it will be in the eastern suburbs. In fact, I'll narrow it down for you. It'll be in Capalaba, sort of Cleveland area, and the Redlands. Put that way. It'll be in the Redlands, and it is a venue of a certain size. So I need to negotiate exactly how many people can get in. There is guaranteed 100 seats. So the first 100 people to say they want to come to this launch, and can I tell you, it is, if you're considering becoming a My Place member, then come and be part of my Place. I won't be there every week, but the weeks that I am here in Brisbane, I will be there. It is a brilliant venue, and I would love to see you come and join it if you are in Brisbane and want to be part of it. That's only, of course, if it's within travelling distance of you. If it's not, but you'd still like to start your own My Place, don't be discouraged by the fact I have. Let's work together. So I believe in part what's happening with Sydney and the meeting on Saturday with all the My Place folks in Sydney. And I encourage you, if you have not already joined a My Place in Sydney, or you don't know whether there's one near you or not, then this meeting on Saturday is 100% for you. In fact, Darren, if you're still on, I'm going to send you a link so you can come in and we'll talk about this if you'd like. I'll send it to your Darren email address so you know what's going on. Something stupid's going on here. What the hell's going on here? It's not talking to me. Bloody. Sign in. Sign into what? At any rate, maybe I can get Darren to come and join us. If not, come down to Stargazer Park at Barangaroo on the banks of the beautiful Sydney Harbour on Saturday. The event starts around midday. Darren will be there. He'll be speaking. Dr. Billy Bay will be there speaking. I'll be there. I doubt I'll be speaking, but I don't mind standing up if Darren gets short of breath. And we'll catch up. It would be wonderful to see you. Sorry, I'm trying to enter into this friggin' email system so I can send you the link, Darren. For some reason, I've been locked out. Oh, no, there you go. Now we can do it. Amazing. I've sent you the email link if you want to come on, Darren, up to you. So, yeah, Barangaroo, the Stargazer Park, 12 o'clock. As many people in Sydney who would like to learn more about My Place, who would like to maybe form one in their areas, and I believe part of what will be discussed there will be splitting Sydney up into areas so that My Places can be created in those areas and people can travel to them. Doesn't mean you have to have one in your suburb. Maybe there's a northern suburbs, an eastern suburbs, a western suburbs, and a southern suburbs version, or maybe there's 5 or 6 different versions. I'm not sure. Sydney's a bloody big place. In fact, I was talking to G2 today, Galactic Larrikin number 2, Rob, and where he lives to get to the event on Saturday is a 2.5-hour drive. I nearly fell over. He still calls himself in Sydney. But anyway, depending on where you are in Sydney, I guess them's the breaks. So how it could be. I'm a walking, talking disaster area. Thanks, Neville. I hope that was while I was fiddling around. Otherwise, I'll make an excuse. I'm a typical man. I can't do 2 things at the same time. Neville, you on the other hand might be a very skilled man who can multi-skill like that. But when you're trying to talk, type, think, and problem solve because the email addresses weren't coming up as they should, and you're doing a live show, yeah, you can come across looking like a tool. Thanks for pointing that out, though. I appreciate it. Tard. Keefe, I didn't say hello. Keefe, and g'day to the Roys, as we do every evening too. Just trying to have a bit of a squeeze down and see what we've got here. Oh, Vicky, hang on. What have you got here? Thank you for being concerned. Yeah, the ribs, they're not good, I can tell you. Oh, mine, no. Ah, God. Well, that's a story, Vicky, for you and me in another occasion. But I hope the bastard got what was coming to him, and we'll leave it at that. I'll get myself in trouble. Peter, what have you sent up? Very good letter to send them. I'll be interested in the reply that you get. That'll be a bit telling, I would have thought. Of course, I just want to tell you, of course, if you are in the gold or silver buying business, go with the people you know you can trust. Ainsley. Ainsley have been great supporters of this program and continue to be great supporters of the freedom movement. And they are part of a announcement that I'll be making in the not too distant future, because they are coming on board to help us spread the message a bit further. So I can't recommend highly enough to you that if you are in the market, whether you're buying one coin or you're buying a million coins, give Ainsley a go if you haven't done so already, and tell them that the Voice of Freedom sent you. You never know, there might be something in that for you. Of course, Ainsley will come on board with us here in a couple of different ways in the future, but they will continue to help us out with competition prizes. So those prizes, the last one was 10 ounces, a 10-ounce silver bar, and I think Cass put up 3 1-ounce coins. If our membership grows, so will those prizes. And I have a prize. It has a weight. I have a weight in mind for that prize. And Ainsley and Cass and associated other people who are involved in this project have all nodded their head in agreement to that prize, but the threshold needs to be met with membership. So if you want to be part of this prize and this opportunity, trust me, you do want to be part of it, then please consider joining Voice of Freedom as a member at vofhq.com. We're going to be looking for some input from you guys pretty much continually in the next short period, but extending to 12 months or more. Input in a lot of different areas. Now, I think I mentioned to you in last night's show that the radio station thing is going to happen. Still dancing with a couple of legalities and a couple of technical things. What I'm trying to create, there is no software really to do it at the moment, at least the way I need to do it. There is other ways, but it creates other difficulties in other areas I'm not going to get into to explain. It's quite technical. At any rate, without boring the ass off you, pretty much ready to go. Just need the place to do it, and either make sure that we pay the fee that's required, and that's finding that fee that is the problem, or telling them to, and going out on our own and doing it and risking what could be quite a serious breach that they will attempt to tell us we have made of their laws, which in and of itself could prove to be an interesting experience we might all share together. We call it a learning experience. If it's going to be that, then hey, I'm happy to be part of that learning experience, and we all learn from that. That's a good thing. I have no problem. What do I have here to show you tonight? Some interesting things came into my inbox today, but in the interests of brevity and the fact that Donald Trump's going to start talking to Tucker Carlson in 5 minutes, have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about this? In 100 years, like in 2123, we'll all be buried with our relatives and friends. Strangers will live in our homes we fought so hard to build, and they'll own everything we have today. All our possessions will be unknown, unborn, including the car we spent a fortune on and will probably be scrapped, preferably in the hands of an unknown collector. Our descendants will hardly know who we are or were, nor will they remember us. How many of us know our grandfather's grandfather? After we die, we'll be remembered for a few more years. Then we're just a portrait on someone's bookshelf, and a few years later, our history, photos, and deeds disappear in history's oblivion. We won't even have memory. We won't even be memories. If we paused one day to analyze these questions, perhaps we would understand how ignorant and weak the dream to achieve it all was. If we could only think about this, surely our approaches, our thoughts would change. We would be different people, always having more, no time for what's really valuable in this life. I'd change all this to live and enjoy the walks I've never taken, the hugs I didn't give, the kisses for our children and our loved ones, these jokes that we've got time or we don't have time for, those who would certainly be, well, the most beautiful moments to remember. After all, they would fill our lives with joy. And we waste it every day, day after day, with greed, 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 and intolerance. It's written by some anonymous person, and I found it today. I thought it extremely powerful. Thank you to whoever shared that to me on Facebook. Truly powerful. Have a think about that. It's got more truth in it the more times you read it. Trust me. Off the coast of southeast Queensland today, some pretty cool things happened. Off the Alexandra Headlands on the Sunshine Coast, this came past. Pretty nice looking little beastie. Have a look at this as she rises and falls in the water. Now, this is a U.S. nuclear submarine. It is the USS North Carolina. And show another little bit there for you. Now, you can see that thing in the middle of its back. That is something you don't see every day. That is a different submarine, a completely different submersible that they use to insert special operations teams and can potentially perform underwater rescues with. Now, it looks to me like she's coming into the passage, the Pumice-Stone Passage, and probably coming in to spend a couple of days R&R after Operation Talisman Sabre has finished. This particular submarine will be an escort to one of those warships that the Americans sent over, either the US America or the USS New Orleans. And they will be off doing, well, we know that those ships came into Brisbane and had some R&R time before the event. And, of course, the submarine would have been patrolling outside Moreton Bay and making sure that they were safe inside during that period, then gone off, done the exercise. Now it will be coming in and doing some R&R for its crew. And by the look of it, if you have a look down the side, she's been underwater a long time. These machines, of course, only have to surface when the crew need time out and they need to refurbish the food because they've eaten everything else. So no doubt there'll be a restocking here and at some point a send-off and heading off to their next little unknown destination. But not often you get to see a US nuclear submarine pulling into town. And you won't be able to get close to it. If it is, in fact, going into Brisbane, I haven't heard, I haven't looked. But if it is coming into Brisbane, I doubt there's going to be any open deck for it. You won't be able to get too close to see it. And if you do happen to have a boat, that would be the easiest way, but you're probably still not going to be allowed within more than a couple of 100 meters of it. The saving grace of that will be you'll be at the same level of it at waterline. So you'll get a bit of an idea of scale. If you do happen to take your boat out and you get close, take a camera, send me the pictures. Love to see what they're like up close. That'd be really cool. All right, I think I've just about hit Tucker's start time. Gee, who knew? Maybe one day I'll get to say that. I've got to get off air because, you know, right now, Tucker Carlson's coming on. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to throw to Tucker Carlson? Got to have dreams, hey? Love you all, folks. Please, if you can help us out, vofhq.com and the donate button there, or do yourself a favor and become a member. Some big things, some big announcements coming soon on the Voice of Freedom. Thanks and good.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!